Hi guys, so today I'm going to go over the summative writing requirements for our next full lab report, which is Unit 8, Acquisition 1, the Iodine Clock Lab. So up first, we need to have a descriptive title. So we want to avoid using verse in the title. I know you guys use that in physics, but in chemistry we just want to use a descriptive title to give the reader an idea of what the lab report is about. Background information. So the background is written in present tense. So I know we haven't talked about kinetics or collision theory yet, so you're going to have to do a little bit of research. So the first thing you need in your background paragraph is to describe kinetics, describe collision theory, tell me how it relates to kinetics, state how concentration affects reaction rate, and then use collision theory to describe why this occurs. And then state how temperature affects reaction rate, and again use collision theory to describe why this occurs. Remember, any time that you are researching information, you want to use in-text citations. So if you go to Google Classroom and click on classwork, about halfway down the class resources, you're going to see the chemistry writing guide. So if you never used this before and you're struggling with lab reports, this might help you guys a little bit. So we can scroll down to the background section and it will show you what your in-text citations should look like. So author's last name and then the year that it was published, if you can find it. That goes in parentheses after the piece of information that you researched. And next, purpose. In this section of the lab report, the purpose is also in present tense. It should be 1 to 2 clear, concise sentences. If you're unsure of the purpose, look back at your lab handout because I gave you the purpose in there. Safety. So you need to look up the safety of potassium iodate and sodium metabisulfite. So the place that we do that is on Flynn Scientific. The website is flynnsci.com. The easiest way to look up safety is to search for it in the search bar. But if you were to click on potassium iodate, the first thing that's going to come up is for you to purchase it. So what we want to do is click on that drop down arrow and we want to change it to SDS. SDS stands for Safety Data Sheet. So now if I search potassium iodate, it was in a solution form, this will bring up the safety data sheet. So we want to do that for 2 of the chemicals, potassium iodate and then also the sodium metabisulfite, which was part of solution B. Methodology, fancy word for your methods or your procedure. Methodology should be in past tense and again third person. The entire lab report should be in third person. One thing that we need to try to get away from is instead of using like I or we, some of us are using they. So instead of saying I measured 3 milliliters of potassium iodate, we're trying to say the lab group measured 3 milliliters or they measured 3 milliliters. Just say 3 milliliters of potassium iodate was measured in a graduated cylinder. It was added to a beaker. 13 milliliters of water was measured and added to a beaker. The beaker was swirled. 6.4 milliliters of solution B was added to the same beaker. The stopwatch was started and the time that it took for the solution to turn blue was recorded. You need to describe all 6 trials from Part 1, which was concentration. So even the trials that I did as a demo, you need to describe. My suggestion is to describe 1 trial and then say this procedure was repeated using the following quantities and then just list the quantities of potassium iodate and water that you use for each of the additional trials. I know that you guys did not get to test temperature in class. You also need to write a methodology for temperature. So along with this video, I am going to post a YouTube link so you can watch me doing the procedure for temperature and you can write the procedure for that. All right, data tables. We need 2 of them. One for part 1, one for part 2. So the last lab for titration, I had a lot of questions on how I made my data tables look the way that I did. So I'm going to go over how to do the data tables. So for part 1, we want to go to Insert, Table, and this one we want to do 8 by 8. Alright, so we're going to highlight these first 2 columns, and you're going to right click, and if you go to merge cells, it will combine them. This is going to be the box that says trial. And next, these next 4 columns are all going to be for solution B. I'm sorry, solution A. So again, I can highlight them, right click, and merge. These are the columns for solution A. So this would be your volume of potassium iodate. This one would be our volume of deionized water. This would be the total volume of solution A. And then lastly, the concentration of solution A. All right, this is going to be my column for solution B. And then we can highlight both of these columns, right click, merge. This is going to be reaction time. And then same thing, highlight, right click, merge. This is my reaction rate. So from here you can kind of adjust each of your columns to make it look a little bit nicer. Alright, so it looks something like this. Alright, this would now be trial 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Alright, for part 2, again we can go to Insert, Table. This one we want to go 9 across, and we want to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down. And again, to adjust the table, we're going to do it the same way. So first 2 columns, we can highlight, right click, merge those together. Now solution A covers 5 columns. So I'm going to highlight my first 5 rows. First 5 columns in that first row. We're going to merge them together. This is going to be solution A. This is solution B. This one would be reaction time. This would be reaction rate. Again, highlight, right click, merge. Highlight, right click, merge. All right, to get your degree sign for temperature, we're going to go to Insert, and we're going to click on Special Characters. And I just like to search by keyword. We can type in the word degree, and I see degree Celsius pops up. So we can just click right on that, and that's going to give you the degree sign that we need. Up next, you're going to have 2 graphs, one for concentration versus reaction rate and one for temperature versus reaction rate. So a few mistakes that I see with graphs. First, make sure you're doing concentration, not volume. Next, make sure you're doing reaction rate, not reaction time. So when we're graphing, the independent variable goes on the x-axis, the y-axis is going to be the dependent variable. The independent variable is what you control or change. So for part 1, you controlled the concentration of potassium iodate. You've controlled how many milliliters of potassium iodate and how many milliliters of water you added. So your independent variable is concentration. The dependent variable is like your results. So you were measuring the reaction rate. How fast did that reaction occur? So reaction rate is your dependent variable. It is on the y-axis. Again, I know we didn't get to do part 2, but you can watch me do this on the video that will be posted with this. Temperature is what I controlled. I controlled whether my solution was at room temperature, whether it was cooled in an ice bath, or whether it was heated on a hot plate. So temperature is the independent variable. Reaction rate would be the dependent variable. Make sure that we follow all of our good graphing techniques. It should be titled. We should have labels on each axis, and it should have units. So if your x-axis is concentration of potassium iodate, that would be your label. The unit would be capital M molar. All right, trends. We haven't talked about trends yet. So for this section, you're going to tell me as the concentration of potassium iodate increases, what happens to reaction rate? So that should just be a general sentence. As concentration increased, reaction rate blank. Is this a direct, indirect, or constant relationship? So going back to the chemistry writing guide, I'm going to scroll down to trends. And it talks about the 3 basic trends. So direct relationship would be if it's increasing. Indirect would be if that slope is decreasing. Constant is if it's staying the same. And then you need to explain why that trend occurs using collision theory. Then we're going to do the same thing for temperature. So first just tell me as the temperature increased, what happened to reaction rate. Next, direct, indirect, or constant, and then explain it using collision theory. Again, past tense, third person. So as concentration increased, reaction rate blanked. This was a blank relationship. All right, conclusion. Again, past tense, third person. It begins by restating the purpose. So the purpose of the lab was blank. First thing you have to tell me is what concentration was needed to cause a color change in 20 seconds. Again, past tense, third person. The concentration needed to cause a color change in 20 seconds was blank molar. Based on your data, tell me how does concentration and temperature affect reaction rate? I need data with this. So in the trend section, you told me the relationship, and the conclusion, you need the data. So you can say concentration increased reaction rate, and then give me the data why. So give me at least 2 data points with 2 different concentrations, 2 different reaction rates, so the reader can see that there is that direct relationship there. Lastly, explanation. Discuss sources of experimental error. There are a lot for this one. I need at least 2 of them, and then again provide recommendations to reduce those errors. Style, no real section here. It's just you get points for making sure that you use the consistent tense. So present tense in the introduction, past tense for the rest of the lab report. Make sure you're using proper spelling and grammar. Correct chemical formatting. So if you're using the chemical formula for potassium iodate, make sure you're using the subscript for the 3. So style, just 2 points to make sure that you're doing everything you're supposed to. And then citations. We already talked about using in-text citations. There is no application for this lab, which is nice. But if you research anything for the explanation section, make sure you have an in-text citation for it, and then we need a works cited at the very end of the lab report. All right, happy writing. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Email me, and I will get back to you when I can. See you later.